Kia ora and welcome a little late to week 9. This week I thought I'd talk a little bit about structure. Structure is what the last module is about and what the last stories are about. But I just thought I'd define it for you real quick. It is defined in the study guide, but I'll just say it again because a lot of times when we talk about structure, people aren't exactly sure what it is we're talking about. They think we're talking about plot, and plot is part of structure, but it's not all there is to structure. So let me just give you a quick definition. This is just the definition that I write in the study guide. It goes like this. When I'm talking about structure, I'm talking about how all the story's components, the length of its sentences, its use of sectioning and paragraph breaks, the quantity of words in place and quotation marks, the length and pacing of scenes, the speed at which events in the narratives are presented, the duration of time a narrative is supposed to cover, all these elements, including any sort of typographical, any different use of typography, illustrations, breakouts on the page, all of this is part of the structure of a story. I guess I would call structure the overall impression. This is somewhat of an impressionistic term, but the overall impression of a story's shape. And I put that in quotes because, it doesn't really have a shape, really. It's kind of a block of text, but we're going to say it has a shape because we feel in reading it as if it has a shape. Structure is a more sort of advanced concept than scene or dialogue or even emotional center. I think for me, what structure allows is it allows us to more finely tune, more closely modulate the reader's experience of a text. Well, what are you talking about, Thom? Well, I'm just going to take a look at Spaceships Have Landed by Alice Munro. It's in the study guide, and I discussed the structure at some length there. I'm not going to go into this much length here, but I just want to talk about how the structure changes our experience of this story. So in Alice Munro's Spaceships Have Landed, one of the things I talk about is there's lots of scenes. I think there's 27 scenes. Some are separated by white space. That right there is contributing to the structure, just the length and that white space. Some are separated by dots. And I talk about how these different scenes impact the way we experience the story. So, for instance, we open with one scene, and then there's white space, and we get the scene later on, and then we go right to the next evening, so things are kind of jarred around. The story opens with a mention of a character. On the night of Uni Morgan's disappearance, Ree was sitting in the bootlegger's house at Carstairs. Well, Uni Morgan seems to be the main character. And one of the experiences of structure is that we open with her, but then we can't find her for a while. She's literally missing. She's missing in the text, but she's also missing in real life. And so that experience of trying to find the main character is part of the structure of this text. The other part of the main part of the structure is trying to find the center of the story. So we seem to open in the present of the story, then the present is relocated way into the past, and we slowly build our way back up to the present where we started before and then slowly move past it. So there's a sense of trying to find the present. Just when we think we've found it, Munro does what she commonly does and flashes forward, in this case 50 years, and all of a sudden what seemed to be the emotional center is way, way, way back there, back at the beginning of the story. And so we have this sense of experiencing time differently. It's as if, I say in the introduction, it's as if our experience of the story is a little bit related to the theme of the story. I think that the combination of divisions of scenes alongside the unpredictable plot accomplishes nothing less than reproducing the experience of an entire lived life. By expertly dividing, concentrating, and expanding the timeline in Spaceships Have Landed, Munro has managed to achieve an astonishing fictional experience, the living of a whole life within the confines of a single story. Well, what I mean by that is the experience of trying to find the center of the story, of looking for the character, of looking for the center of the story. The structure of the story creates a more nuanced kind of experience, and it gives us a sensation, even if only momentarily, of trying to find the story in a whole lived life, trying to find it gives us a sensation almost of creating the story itself, because we have to put the parts together to try to find the narrative, because the narrative doesn't come sort of already delivered, as it never does for Munro. So that experience of recreating the structure, of having a very complex structure that asks the reader to do some work and piecing it together, that gives us a different kind of experience than a more straightforward structure. than a structure and say, take a look at Carver's. Trying to remember, I Could See the Smallest Things by Raymond Carver. In that case, we have a very condensed, very tight structure. And in that case, there's a structure of a story. It's taking place in one night. And what we have to do, if anything, is extrapolate from that moment and try to read beyond it. In this case, the moments of the narrative are so wide and expansive that we have to try to gather them together and make some order of them rather than try to expand them. We have to try to condense them. So those experiences of encountering structure are a little more difficult to articulate sometimes, and they're pretty difficult to write. And I don't expect anybody to go away from this course being a master structuralist, to be a master of structure and stories. But I just think it's something to be aware of as we're talking about all these more basic concepts, such as character and theme and plot, scene, all these sorts of things. There are other elements too, and some of those you'll get to if you continue to study fiction more, for instance, in advanced fiction writing, or maybe if you go on to study the Masters of Creative Writing. So good luck in workshopping this week. I hope all goes well, and I'll try not to be late for the next week for the video. Take care.